Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast on this 27th of May 2021. I'm hosting Cyril Gerald-Quinn, discussing the world of sports and pop culture. Of course, it's going to be a heavy NBA podcast. So we'll do a lot on the NBA with the NBA playoffs. Of course, last night you had a night where, the games themselves. You had one good game with the Knicks and Hawks, which was a good game, not a well played game, but a competitive game. Very much a competitive game. But the story coming out last night, unfortunately, came out of Philadelphia and New York as well. Russell Westbrook, of course, hurts his ankle, leaves the game early in the fourth. I believe it was it was midway through the fourth quarter, or even early in the fourth quarter, sometime in the fourth quarter. I wasn't into that particular game because the Wizards were just getting pummeled by a team that they're frankly, overmatched against a team that they basically just have no chance against it in terms of the Sixers. So Westbrook leaving the court, and he's with some Wizards personnel. Thankfully that they were there, and you had this idiot come out in the stands, and dumps popcorn on Westbrook. The popcorn got through the canopy that protects the players as they are going into the locker room. So I'm assuming that Westbrook at that point was headed towards the training room to get treatment or get his ankle checked out. And of course this fan dumps popcorn on him, on Westbrook. Westbrook, of course, immediately, goes out there, points out the fan, and tries to. I'm not going to say he tried to go up in the stands because that's not the case. He was restrained out of just sheer, if you work for the Washington Wizards, that is your job to protect the player. So I think that was more about them protecting Westbrook than it was, anything. And so I'm not going to say he was going to go in the stands for that because that wouldn't be fair to Westbrook. But rightfully so. He had every right to be pissed off. We would later find out that Trae Young was spat on by a fan, and I actually saw that video. That video is just remarkable. With these fans now. It's kind of a reflection of where we're at in society, and thinking people can just say or do anything to somebody, in particular African American, and not expect a response. We've seen a lot of videos with people getting their asses whipped, trying the wrong male or female, black man or black woman. And I'll get back to that, and I'll certainly get back to that. It's not enough for. And I saw I saw the fan. I read reports that both fans from the one from New York and one from Philadelphia were banned. For the rest of the season. The fan from Philadelphia is banned. Had his season tickets revoked. Okay, it's not enough. Those type of actions, to me, require lifetime bans. Lifetime bans, not just seasonal bans, not just a yearly ban for the following year, but a lifetime ban. Throwing popcorn on somebody, spitting on somebody, that's assault. Let's call it what it is. That is assault. It's not, that's not talking about somebody's family or saying something or saying I'm gonna blah blah. That's not. There's not a verbal threat. No, you go beyond that. That turns into the physical when you're talking about dumping popcorn and you're talking about spitting on somebody, which is even worse than the dumping the popcorn, especially in these COVID times that we live in. I think the NBA with this and the players. Listen, the players. This is where if you're a player And players in the NBA have more power than they ever have. We talk about player and power. You know, we talk about how empowered players are and how much control players have. Well, this is a time where you, as a player, and you got to flex your muscle. And I'm not just talking about tweeting, as is the case with what LeBron James did last night. And rightfully, and I understand where he was coming from. He's protecting the players. He's going to defend the players, and rightfully so. He's amongst. They are a fraternity, and there is a brotherhood, especially amongst the NBA players. Um, they do support each other, on the court and off the court. But to me, if I'm a player, I really have to watch, and I really have to check my interaction with fans moving forward. So you might have some players who ignore what fans say, and it doesn't get you have certain players who just completely ignore it. It doesn't bother them. They go about their business, and of course you have other players who you know like Westbrook and like some other players in the league who just won't tolerate it at all, even verbally. We saw Westbrook go at the fans in Utah for racist slurs that were made towards him, that he claimed that were made towards him. I think those fans were suspended, or not banned, but I think they weren't kicked out immediately, but I think eventually that they were removed from the arena, or kicked out, or had lost their season tickets. Something happened with that. That was like 2 or 3 years ago. But the bottom line is, I think if you're a player, you can no longer ignore things that you deem to be inappropriate or disrespectful. I think that's where it's gotten to, because you have to force the NBA, or put pressure on the NBA to hold fans accountable. And it can't be just, obviously throwing popcorn, spitting, or that goes without saying that those are punishable offenses, and those are offenses that deem a ban, to me, a permanent ban, not just a indefinite ban, but a permanent ban. But I think players are going to have to really be cognizant of what's being said to them, and not just call it out to a security guard, not just call it out to an official, but really go to the NBA and say, look, we can't have any of this. So I think that's what players are going to have to do for moving forward. Like, there might be players. I know there are a lot of players who just might completely ignore what fans say to them, even if it's disrespectful, even if it crosses the line. You're talking about somebody's kids, wife, something like that. That, to me, I think it's got to a point where you really have to call that out moving forward. And it can't just be certain individuals like a Westbrook or like a couple other players who will call it out. No, this has to be a collective group effort if you're a player. That's where we're at right now. It's almost like, and I'll say this: there are players. I mean, LeBron said this. I heard Jay Crowder come out and say this today. There are players that like to go back and forth with the fans, that like talking shit with the fans. I think as a player, you might have to check that for the future. That's where, because here's the thing, folks, people. We're in a society now, and a lot of this connects in terms of race. And yes, it is part of this is a race issue. To make no mistake about it. But we're at a point where, again, we saw a number of videos where someone will call a black person, call a black man, call a black woman a nigger, and then get the shit beat out of them. And I've seen a number of those videos over the course of the last year. Don't think that type of behavior is not going to get passed on to the sports world with fans coming back. Don't think that it 100% is. And I'm telling you right now, as fans come in, again, fans will the way it's moving right, the way it's going right now. Um, Next season we're going to have and probably we're definitely going to have full capacity next season in venues across the country, and you're going to have fans out here who are going to try these players, especially in the NBA where the venues are where the venues, it's a more intimate setting. I mean, you're right there. You have great seats. You're literally right there within walking distance of a player. I mean, you can really, depending on where you're sitting at, not walking distance, but you're much closer than, of course, a football stadium or soccer stadium, something, or even soccer, or even with hockey, which is protected by the plexiglass. So basketball is easily the most intimate of settings in regards to the four major sports. And again, I think players, this is where you have to flex your muscle as a player. Um, Chris Paul is president of the basketball of the Players Association. If I were Russell Westbrook, I would, after the playoffs was over, I definitely would. That would be one of the first calls I made in regards to the situation. Would be to Chris Paul. And if you're the NBA, I don't want to hear about, well, this behavior would not be tolerated, so on and so on. Those two fans absolutely 100% should be banned for life. It's just that simple. Not a season ban, not a revoking of tickets, not an indefinite ban, a lifetime ban. Lifetime. Period. There's no two ways about it. A lifetime ban. And if I'm Russell Westbrook, I will come out and say that, like, that dude needs to be banned for life from that arena, or from an NBA, or yeah, from that particular arena, banned for life. Matter of fact, banned for life from watching, from going to any NBA arena for that matter. You have to go. I mean, if you want to protect players, this is the extremes you have to go to. Otherwise, it will not only keep happening, it will get worse. It will get worse. This is the society that we're living in right now, with all this going on with the division that's in the country. All this is intertwined. All this is connected. Do not think for a second that it's not. And don't think that for a second that sports, just because it's entertainment, don't think that sports is protected from all the shit that's going on in this country. It's because it's not. It's all connected. All of it's connected. So again, I think players, you know, NBA of course, the NBA has a job to protect its players, but the NBA, but again, I'll compare it to, I'll make this analogy of voters putting pressure on the government. The players have to put the pressure on the NBA to protect them, because the NBA really doesn't want to ban fans for life. They really don't want to do that. They want to walk that balance of, hey, we'll ban them for a year. Following year, we can get that ticket money, get that season ticket money back. That's what I'm telling you. It's a business. And don't think for a second that the NBA is not thinking like that. It's still a business at the end of the day. We want to talk, of course, tonight you will have the Lakers taking on the Lakers and Phoenix in Game 3. We'll talk more about that series later on later on in the podcast. But I just have to I just have to I just wanted to get on this Laker Clipper dynamic. And listen, I I as a lifelong Laker fan could frankly give two shits about the Clippers. They're not a rivalry. I don't think about the Clippers. I'm not concerned at all about the Clippers. I find it interesting though about the Clippers as they, continue to embarrass themselves in the postseason over the last losing, 5 straight games now to the Dallas Mavericks. No, not to the Dallas Mavericks, but 5 straight postseason games. Going back to the series last year with Denver Nuggets, 3 to them, and now 2 to Dallas, a team that they are superior in talent. They have way more talent than and clearly should not be down up 2-0 in the series and shouldn't be in their current predicament. But a couple years ago when Kawhi Leonard signed with the Clippers and spurned the Lakers were seemingly the butt of a lot of jokes. Kawhi used them. The Clippers have exceeded them as a far superior organization. The Clippers are this, that. The Clippers are going to win multiple championships, and so on and so on. So we now stand, right, May 27th, 2021. And since then, the Clippers have won in these 2 years up until this point. They've won one playoff series. Okay. We're on the other end. We're on the wrong end of one of the most embarrassing collapses in recent NBA history. And now they are 2 losses away from returning back to mediocrity, to be honest with you, because if they lose these next 2 games, which I expect, I'll tell you right now, I think they're going to get swept myself. I picked Dallas to win the series in 6 games. The Clippers, to me, will put up no resistance in Dallas. I'll be shocked if they put up any resistance moving forward in this series. But they, don't be surprised. They could be looking at mediocrity again, going back to the pre-Chris Paul Clippers. Could definitely see a world where Kawhi Leonard says, "You know what? I'm out. I'll go to New York. I'll go to Miami." And then the Clippers, trade Paul George. And then what are you left with? I mean, what are you left with? Marcus Morris, Terrence Mann, Patrick Beverly. So again, this things can change quickly in the NBA. Things can change quickly in sports, and that's why when Paul George makes these comments from at the end of last season in regards to the window is still open. This was really not a big deal that we lost. We'll be fine. Championship windows don't stay open for long in sports. They close quickly. Good. Ask Chris Webber with the Sacramento Kings. Everybody thought that when Sacramento took the Lakers to 7 games in 2002, that they would have a 3 to 4 to 5, maybe even 5-year championship window. That window was closed by 2004. Really, it was only 2 years. They had an 02 and 03. 04, they weren't even a championship contender at that point. They had a 2-year window, and that was it. Windows close quickly in the world of sports. So, I look at the Clippers, and I look at just the mentality of that franchise now versus the Lakers, who, despite all the struggles, injuries, and what have you, find themselves with now home court advantage and find themselves still probably the class of the Western Conference, despite the inconsistent play of Anthony Davis and LeBron not being, LeBron from a physical standpoint. He's still mentally, as sharp as a knife, but physically he's not, he's probably operating at about 60%, 70, maybe 70%, if that. But he's older. And again, we gotta start holding Kawhi Leonard. I hear Kawhi, like and I'm a Kawhi Leonard fan as far as his game. We know, I mean, he's a future Hall of Famer, but I don't want to hear Kawhi mentioned amongst all-time greats right now. I just don't want to hear that conversation right now because Kawhi, again, and I said this at the end of last season, Kawhi does not raise the level of others around him. He gets his points, he puts up his numbers, his leader, and he just those, and there are certain intangibles that great players have, all-time great players have. Kawhi doesn't have those intangibles from a leadership standpoint. And now you're at the point in his career where you basically have to nurse him through a season. Like he's missing 15 to 20 games. He's not able to guard the other team's best player for a sustained amount of time without physically wearing down. Like this series, he should be the primary defender on Luka. Period. Especially after game one. Didn't spend a lot of time on Luka in game two. This guy is considered to be one of the great perimeter defensive players of all time. The best since Scottie Pippen, some say. And he's 20. Kawhi's not 35, 34. Kawhi's 29. Kawhi's 29. This is supposed to be his prime. He's supposed to be in the midst of his prime. Physically, his game mentally, physically, the whole nine. You're supposed to be seeing the best of Kawhi Leonard in regards to his career right now. And again, they're going to go out because this series is over. They're going to go out again without a whimper. And I'm sorry, we gotta listen. You want to give them because you give them all the credit when they won a championship in Toronto. Well, part of it being great, part of being a 2 times Finals MVP, a part of being recognized as one of the top 5 players in the world. You gotta take that smoke when the shoe's on the other foot. I want to spend a minute on Aaron Rodgers. I was thinking about this today in regards to this situation. There might be a narrative that Green Bay has done Aaron Rodgers dirty, that Green Bay has not maximized Rodgers' MVP years or his best years. They should have more Super Bowls, and all those things could be true. The bottom line to me, in regards to the situation, is I can't see Green Bay trading Aaron Rodgers. I've been thinking about it more as we get to a point where mini camps are coming up, OTAs, training camp will be coming up in about what, couple of months, late July, about 2 months, 6, 7 to 8 weeks. And I don't see a scenario where Rodgers sits out training camp or misses time during the season. Like maybe I could be dead wrong. Like Aaron Rodgers might pull it. It is possible. It is very much possible that Aaron Rodgers pulls a Emmitt Smith. If you go back, you remember back in '93, Emmitt Smith won the contract extension, the '93 season, won the new contract. He sat out the first 2 games. Dallas went 0-2. Then Emmitt Smith got his money, and Dallas proceeded to go win the second straight Super Bowl. I just don't. And again, I just don't see a situation where Aaron Rodgers does that. It seems to me that Green Bay is steadfast in their ways, in their system, in their culture This is what we do. This is how it's done. No one, we're not going to allow one person, even if it is Aaron Rodgers, to dictate our culture. Even to me, even like forget about trading him. I don't even see us in it. Like they haven't even addressed, you got Julio Jones on the market right now. I would make it would make perfect sense to me for them to trade. They really want to fix a relationship with Aaron Rodgers. It would make perfect sense for them to go out there and trade for Julio Jones. I don't see it happening. It is just not the Packers' way. I don't see it happening. And Julio Jones would obviously fit perfectly with Green Bay, not having to be the number one. And when you get, I mean, we'll talk more about Julio Jones, but when you get Julio Jones, Julio Jones is not playing 16 games. So and Green Bay is equipped to have Julio Jones just play 10 to 12 games and be healthy and be ready for the playoffs. That's all it is to it. I mean, you almost have to treat Julio Jones somewhat like Kawhi Leonard from that standpoint in terms of load management because he's been physically breaking down over the last few years of his career. And he's not a spring chicken anymore. He's 32 years old. Yeah, I think Julio Jones is about 32, but he's up there. But I think Green Bay has shown you Green Bay has not shown any. They haven't shown that they are going to give in to Rodgers. Even I mean, offer him more money. That's privately offering him more money. I don't think that's giving in to Aaron Rodgers whatsoever. I mean, you can restructure contracts. You can you can put players, give players signing bonuses or incentive bonuses. I mean, there are ways you can give players more money, especially a quarterback more money. And it seems like Rodgers is just not worried about that. According to him, it's about respect and how And bottom line, he can't stand the general manager. But again, I don't see a scenario where Aaron Rodgers is traded. Like I just don't at all. Like I'll be shocked. And there are deals. Listen, there are deals to be out there. Like you can go to Miami if you're Green Bay and clean house. You can get You can get a possible quarterback who could maybe be a franchise quarterback in Tonga and Tua. In Tua, you can get multiple draft picks. They have a boatload of capital, trade capital, does the Miami Dolphins with all these draft picks and how much talent they have on that roster. That would be the ideal team that I would deal with, and you're trading them out of the conference. And of course, Aaron Rodgers on Miami, they are instant Super Bowl contenders. But again, I don't see it. I just don't. And I mean, Rodgers, he has some leverage if he's willing to sit out games. I don't know if he's willing to sit out games. Like if he started missing games, and that creates leverage because the team's going to lose, and other players are going to be pissed off, not at him, as they're going to be pissed off at the organization. So we will see how this plays out. If Rodgers is traded after June 1st, then that will give Green Bay a lot of salary cap flexibility. It will save a ton of money in regards to this year's salary cap and also future in their salary cap situation in the future as well. So if he's traded, it will be after June 1st without question. He's not getting traded before then. Getting back to the NBA playoffs. So the last couple of nights, things have kind of returned to order has kind of been restored outside of what, of course, was going on what was going on in the Dallas Clipper series. So Miami Philadelphia and Boston, maybe Miami and Philadelphia had puncher's chances to win in game one. Those were their games to win. Boston has zero chance to win, even though their game one was competitive, and we saw what happened in game two. So we in the Eastern Conference, this is just what you have to deal with in the Eastern Conference. Eastern Conference is top heavy. Those three teams are heads and shoulders above the rest of the conference. It goes without saying, and you were going to get some ass whoopings in the first round. There's just all this to it. Maybe in the first round, there was just all this to it. And now you're in a situation where I don't know I don't know how much Miami has left in the tank. They could be swept, even though I think they'll probably get one game, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's a sweep. The Philadelphia Washington, that's going to be a sweep to me. We know Boston is going to be a sweep. Boston, Brooklyn is going to be a sweep. But you still have Atlanta, New York, which I think probably will go to 7 games. But this is what was going to happen in the Eastern Conference. It was inevitable considering how dominant those three teams are at the top of the conference. There was no other team that were going to challenge those three teams. They had, in regards to Philadelphia, Brooklyn, and Milwaukee. So you can already start looking forward. We can already start looking ahead to that Milwaukee Brooklyn, which will be, that will be like a finals. To be honest with you, that is like a finals matchup. Forget about Eastern Conference semifinals matchup. That is like that could be an NBA Finals matchup in regards to how the quality of the teams. We've seen young stars really take shape in these playoffs, led by Ja Morant, who, when you look at what he's done the last 3 games, go back to the play-in game, Golden State, he goes for 35. He goes for 26 in game 1 of the Utah series, and last night he goes for 43. Only George Mikan, I think, has scored more points in his first 2 playoff games in the history of the NBA. This is a guy, and again, remember last year in the play-in game that they lost to Portland, he scored 35. So this guy, and again, he's doing this without a jump shot. That's the scary part of Ja Morant. He's doing this without a jump shot. And I said this to somebody last night. I think he's going to be a better version of Russell Westbrook. I think he's Westbrook under control. And I think he's a guy who will be a winner in this league. I think I think I think he has the potential to be the best player on a championship team if the franchise puts the right pieces in place. He's that dynamic of a talent. And that dynamic of a leader. Last night, you look at that game last night, Utah was supposed to win by 30 points. Everything was set up for Utah to destroy Memphis. And I thought they would. I thought it would be an ass whooping, but he single-handedly, along with Dylan Brooks, who was in foul trouble, still had 23 points in 28 in limited play. He basically almost single-handedly scared the hell out of Utah and made that game a lot more difficult for Utah than it probably should have been. And this guy, he gets to the paint at will. At will. And again, he does not have a consistent jump shot, let alone 3-point shot. Even though he got hot in that Golden State game, but he doesn't have he's not a good jump shooter at this stage of his career. But he has showed out in these playoffs, and really, in his short in big games. In big games the last 2 years, he's just been flat out dominant. Of course, Devin Booker and Trae Young. Devin Booker has been the best player in the Lakers series up to the first 2 games, and Trae Young, without question, has been the best player in the New York Knicks series through the first couple games. So you see, and again, the one common denominator for these young players coming in and playing as well as they play in these is that the fact that they are all perimeter players. They're all perimeter players. Zion Williamson, for all the numbers that he's putting up, didn't make the playoffs this year. He put up some big numbers. So, and again, and we all know that they had injuries and they are one of the worst coach teams in the league, that goes without saying. But it is a perimeter-dominated league, period. It is a absolute perimeter-dominated league. And, the big man still has value. Size in the NBA still has value. But you got to have one of these guys that can put the ball on the floor and that can create for others at a high level to even have a chance in today's NBA. Luka and Jokic have gotten off to really historic starts in regards to what in terms of their playoff careers. Luka has only played 8 games, and of course all against the Clippers. I'm sure he wishes he could play the Clippers, every playoff series of his life, the way he's owned them. But Luka in 8 games up until this point is look at his numbers here. 32, 9 and 8, 32, 8 and 9, shooting 50% from the field and about 38% from the 3-point line, from the 3-point range. And Jokic, who has, was playing a lot more, who has played, Jokic is a little bit older. He's played in 35 playoff games. Jokic has been 25, 11, and 6, shooting 52% from the field and over 41% from 3-point range. So both of these players have seemingly have been dominant early on throughout their playoff careers. Jokic, and really, you have to go back to thinking about players who've gotten off to these type of starts. You're talking about Kevin Durant and LeBron James, to be honest with you. When you compare, when you look at what Durant and LeBron James did in their first couple of playoff years. Remember Durant, 2010, he took the Lakers to 6 games. That's what we're back. Yeah, was in the NBA Finals by year 3. LeBron, his first playoffs, of course, lost that 7-game series to Detroit. Played well in 13 games. Played well in 13 games in that playoff series season, and the next year at the age of 22 was in the NBA Finals in 2007. Now, Luka has yet to win the playoff series, so we'll see a big test for him will be to finish off this series. If he's as great as we think he is, and as talented as we think he is, as we know he is, then he will finish the Clippers off. Jokic has already been the best player on a team that went to the conference finals last year before falling to the Lakers. So you got, you have a number of talented young stars who are beginning to take over the league. Now you still have LeBron, still have Durant. There are still some guys in that age range of 28 to 29 age range that are still top players. Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, still have those guys. Those guys are still around, but you can feel a change. You can feel there's a shift change coming in regards to the NBA. And normally when this happens, it happens quicker, sooner than later when you talk about generational talents like like a Luka, when you talk about franchise caliber players like a Ja Morant, Devin Booker, Trae Young, or Nikolai Jokic, excuse me. As far as tonight's games, again, we'll see what I expect the Lakers to win to take out Phoenix. I just don't think Phoenix has anything without Chris Paul. I don't think that they can just. It's just too much to ask them to push the Lakers to the limit without their best closer, without frankly one of the best closers in the league. That's why they lost game 2. I mean, they were right there. That game was right there for the taking. If Chris Paul would have been healthy enough to close. Not a bad idea by Charles Barkley. I mean, Barkley mentioned something last night that if you're Phoenix, you only need to get one game to regain home court advantage. It would not be the worst idea to sit him for this game. And then next game is not until I think Sunday, Sunday in game 4 and play. So in essence, he would have had off. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So basically four and a half days. It's not a bad idea, right? It's not a bad idea. Is it going to make a huge difference? I don't know. If he's that injured, then that injury is not going away in regards to the shoulder. But it's not a bad idea to sit him this game and play and go and get him ready to go all in a game 4. In regards to Denver, Portland, I don't think that Denver will be able to get away with Aaron Gordon on Damian Lillard. I expect Lillard to make the adjustment on that, in regards to that matchup and to be ready for that matchup. Seems like he was thrown off by that matchup in game 2. Because he had 32 in the first half and ended up with only had 10 points in the second half. And then give Aaron Gordon credit, but a big man, and Aaron Gordon in today's NBA is a big man, is not going to stop Dame Lillard. It's not going to stop Dame Lillard over a sustained amount of time. And again, I don't expect much. I don't know what to expect out of Miami. You would think that they would show some pride in front of their home fans and not go out quietly. But after Tuesday, I don't know. That was not a good sign Tuesday. In regards to the effort, in regards to how to, in regards to, it wasn't just so much the threes that Milwaukee made. There was no resistance by Miami. And again, Jimmy Butler, and give Giannis credit for this. Giannis has done a good job on Jimmy Butler throughout the course of the series, minus the one possession at the end of the game in game 1, which I don't know. He basically played, Olay defense for that. But minus that, he basically had Jimmy Butler on lock. So he deserves credit for that. But I would have to think that Miami would show some pride in tonight and win game 3. But I did not like what I saw after on Tuesday. Because we mentioned earlier, Julio Jones is on the trading block. I'll say this about Julio Jones. If you're a team trading for Julio Jones, you better make sure that you have a backup plan. Like, you better have receivers that you better be deep at the receiver position. If you put all your eggs in the Julio Jones basket, you're gonna come up, you're gonna come up short. Julio Jones is not going to play 16 games, or no, this year 17 games because there's extra game. Probably it's an extra game this year. It's not going to happen. You get 12 games out of Julio Jones, or 11 games out of Julio Jones, consider that to be a success. And if you're trading for him, I'm assuming it's going to be a contending team like Tennessee or the Patriots. You're playing for the postseason. You got to be thinking about the postseason as well. You better have some depth at that receiver spot. I'm not sure either one of those teams are equipped to be counting on Julio Jones and make Julio Jones their primary receiver. Green Bay is, because Devontae Devontae Adams is a number one. And they have some other depth. They have some depth. They have a good tight end as well. All those teams are. I don't see Tennessee. I definitely don't think New England with their receiving situation. I know they went out and got addressed the tight end situation. But they still. If Julio Jones is on that roster, he is by far and away their best receiver. So I don't even think that would be a good situation considering Julio Jones's recent injury struggles. So to me, if I'm trained for Julio Jones, I'm already established at the receiver position, and having him on a team is more of a luxury than a necessity. Phil Mickelson, of course, Phil Mickelson won PGA Championship last Sunday. Really one of the most remarkable major wins in the last decade. Certainly Tiger Woods in 2019 Masters is up there as well. But this one, I would say this one's even more impressive. I mean, Phil, of course, is the oldest major winner in history at the age of 50. And the fact that Phil Mickelson had done nothing in majors for the better part of the last basically 5 years. He has one top 20 finish in the last 5 years. He had won one major since 2013. Last major win came in 2013. And the fact that he had won a tournament in 2 years, like Phil, there was no reason to believe that Phil Mickelson could contend, let alone win another major championship. And it's one of the reasons why you have to love golf, because of that type of unpredictability where a guy can get hot and things come good, and things break in, everything breaks in the right place, things break in place, fall in place, I should say, and next thing you know, he has a major championship. The thing I found that was funny about this, it may not have been funny to the other golfers, was when Phil Mickelson was losing majors and constantly falling apart. Phil Mickelson has 6 majors, which ranks amongst the top 10 or 11 all time, and he's all time great. Phil Mickelson, based on his talent and based on how many times he's been in contention, probably should have anywhere from 10 to 12 majors, considering how many times he's fallen apart on Sundays in majors. He has 6 runner-ups in the U.S. Open, which is a record. To watch everybody else around him fall apart on Sunday was kind of ironic, because that, to me, that over the course of Phil Mickelson, that was Phil Mickelson in majors. He was the one that was falling apart, taking unnecessary chances, gambling too much on his own talent, and it of course cost him this major. Phil, in this particular, with age comes wisdom. Phil, in this particular tournament on Sunday, really didn't take a lot of chances. Really played the course. Was happy with the taking pars. So, it took a while. Took 20 years or so. Phil finally figured it out from that standpoint. Has finally figured it out that every shot doesn't have to be the greatest shot in the history of golf. And that, golf is a sport where others beat themselves as much as their opponents outplay them. So that is the half the battle a lot of times when it comes to the sport of golf. That is, of course, the player will beat themselves more so than their opponent or even the golf course. So that is without question a historic major championship win, and it'll be very interesting to see. And Phil looks like he's in better shape. Who knows what, maybe Phil can win 2 or 3 more majors. I don't know. I mean, it'll be very interesting to watch him at the U.S. Open this year, a place that I'm sure would. And this is the final check mark of his career. If he wins this major, his career will be complete from a standpoint. He would have won all 4 majors. So this is kind of like the final. It will be the final. It will become the strawberry. It'll be the final topping, the cherry on top, so to speak, for his career, if he were to win the U.S. Open this year. Didn't get a chance to talk about Golden State in regards to the NBA. Of course, Golden State did not make the playoffs. They lost in a classic playing game with Memphis, where Ja Morant frankly outplayed Steph Curry. But with that being said, Golden State will be back. Um, Steph Curry is, and reports have surfaced, and it should be no surprise that Steph Curry is going to sign that 4-year, $214 million super max extension. Like Steph Curry, the idea that anybody thought that Steph Curry would go and ring chase, like go to the Lakers or go to another place, is insane. You have $214 million on the table, and he loves playing in Golden State. That is his franchise. That you know he's not going anywhere. I think, will retire a Golden State Warrior, in my opinion. And they will have a championship caliber team next year if Klay Thompson returns at 90%, and engage Draymond Green. And they have Lowry picks. They're gonna have probably more likely 2 Lowry picks in a talented draft, especially up top, to go out there and make a move for an all-star, or for some players that can help them out, that can help them out next year. So I think Golden State will be fine next year. I actually think not making the playoffs helps them, to be honest with you. And frankly like some of their core players, some of their younger core players, that they developed over the course of this season. And even Wiggins, who could be a trade piece. Wiggins had a nice season. You put Wiggins as a 4th or 5th guy. Wiggins could be the 4th best player on the championship team, or 4th or 5th best player on a championship team. He could be a defensive stalwart with his athleticism. I thought he played well towards the latter part of the year, in particular, and latter part of the year, especially in April and May, especially in April and May. So that team's going to be a problem next year, without question. And there's no way Steph Curry is going anywhere in terms of leaving that franchise. That is, you can book it that he will be a Golden State Warrior for the remaining part of his career. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. I will see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your week.